Welcome to another episode of the Seamus Evans Show. As a professional speaker, I have been speaking on stages as a professional speaker for the past 5 years, but I have been performing in front of crowds for close to 18 years, probably even longer. When I was a child, I was always the one entertaining the family. I was always the one putting on shows for the family with my neighborhood friends. That's always been something I've gravitated towards. I used to watch my favorite movies and TV shows, and then I would replicate them and I would quote them and I would mimic them in front of my makeshift audiences. I would perform stand-up in my room in front of my teddy bears. It was just something I've always naturally done. That's not to say I've never been scared, I've never been nervous, but I've always had a knack for it and I've always been very good at it, purely from a runs on the board point of view. I've been doing it for a very long time. But it is nerve-wracking. There are times when you are on stage and you are bricking it. You are sweating, your mind is running a million miles an hour, but your mind is blank. You don't know what to say next. You can feel the awkwardness in the room. You can feel people staring at you. You can notice them turning off from you. You can notice them judging you, assessing you, talking to one another. And your job is like spinning plates. You've got to bring them in. You've got to draw them in. I would say there's a huge difference in art of knowing how to deliver a presentation and managing a crowd. They're two different pieces of art. When I was doing stand-up comedy, navigating a crowd, bringing a crowd in, that's where my crowd management skill set started to sharpen. But when it came to knowing how to deliver a presentation or knowing how to deliver something, that's a different art. Formulating a story from start to finish, intertwining jokes, intertwining stories, navigating your way through what part of the story is emotional. They're two different art forms, very, very different. So when it comes to the fear element, now 75% of the world's population are scared of speaking in public. They are scared to deliver speeches in front of other people. 75% of the world. They are actually more scared of speaking in public than they are of dying. There's a famous Seinfeld joke that people would prefer to be in the coffin than to give the eulogy. They're the statistics from around the world. So if you're able to overcome this fear, which is so easy, by the way, and I will give you the answer in just a moment's time. But if you're able to just jump that little hurdle, then you're in the top 25% of the population who are capable of speaking to crowds, who are speaking in front of people. And that puts you in such good stead in any industry that you're in. If you're able to jump that hurdle and be in that top 25%, it is such a skill set. Here's the answer. And now, if you clicked on this link because you thought, I want to get better at public speaking, I want to overcome that fear. By the way, the fear is called glossophobia. Glossophobia. That's the fear. That's the name of the fear. It's a genuine fear. Okay. They have done studies all over the world with Valium, with alcohol. They've done all different types of medication versus activities versus you name it, like even gratitude before you go up on stage, whatever it is. The number one cure to glossophobia is exposure therapy. Just doing it. Now, a lot of people hear that and their heart sinks because they're like, man, I don't want to get up on stage. Well, that's it. Once you realize it doesn't kill you, then you're able to do it again. And the more you do it, the less scared you become and the better you get. When you get to a point, which is the point I'm at now, where you can stand in front of a crowd of just say 3,000 people and improvise a little bit and kind of not know where you're going next. It still happens where I forget my place. It happened recently to a crowd of 15 people. I was in a boardroom and I was delivering a 2-hour workshop presentation. And the first 40 minutes was just my delivery of my keynote, right? Done in a very different, in order to do it to 1,000 people versus 15, it's a very different delivery. 1,000, it's a little hard to be intimate, and you have to be a little bit more performative on stage because there is a disconnect between you and the crowd. But when you're in a boardroom with 15 people, if you start performing the way you would on a stage, it's quite fake, it's quite removed, it feels disjointed, it feels awkward. So there's a lot of jokes that I make in my keynote. There's a lot of jokes that I make. But it's just like if you say a joke to someone and they know it's a joke, it's not really that funny. The art is weaving it in a way where you feel like they feel like you're telling it for the first time, or it comes across conversational. Whereas on a stage, you can get away with being quite blatant about the jokes and a little bit obvious and ham them up, okay, for performance effect. But when you're in a boardroom, it has to be seamless. It has to just slip in between the information so they don't think, oh, here we go, this is awkward, he's telling a joke. So there's a very different delivery to the crowd numbers. Anyway, I lost my spot. I was halfway through, and the reason why I lost my spot is I went off script. Now, I don't script my keynote. I dot point it, and I just know when to join the dots. But I just elaborated on something that I don't usually do, but I thought, the hell with it. I'm having fun with this, and I've just got more information, and I wanted to inject some data, some research into a certain joke I think I was telling. Sounds like a boring joke. Here's some data for your humor. I think it was to gain more credibility because the crowd I was talking to were government officials. So I'm like, I better throw some statistics in here just to make it look like I know what I'm talking about. But in doing that I went rogue. And usually I know the cue to go to the next point. But because I went rogue, I was like, I don't know what's next. Now, in those moments, if you are scared, if you are nervous, and if you don't know how to handle those nerves, that 5 seconds you're not talking feels like a minute or feels like 10 minutes. But your ability to get back, your ability to bring yourself back on track, there's a few different ways I do it. One, I'll keep talking and I'll ramble on about something. I will make something up, not a statistic or not some data, but I will just keep talking and just throw my mouth on autopilot while my brain searches for what's next. The other trick is to just stop talking. Stop talking and walk. Just pause. Go get a drink. Turn around. Look at something. Whatever it is. Don't stand there dumbfounded. Or if you do stand there and you're searching, look at people. Be intentional with your body. By that, I mean, don't stand there and look like you're a rabbit that's just been spotted by a spotlight on a hunting trip. Instead, walk across the room, look down at your shoes, or look over at someone and give them a smile. I don't know, but just do something. And in the meantime, very quickly search in your mind, what the hell am I saying next? They're completely opposite suggestions. Either keep talking or shut up. Regardless, you've got to get back on point. Sometimes I'll repeat myself if I don't know what I'm saying next, which again happens all the time, even though I've said my keynote hundreds of times. Say a previous sentence or just jump ahead, because when it comes to a 5-minute stand-up comedy set, you've got to be really tight, and your sentence structure, your joke setup really needs to flow. And if you kind of jump forward, you might lose a punchline, or if you jump backwards, you've only got 5 minutes. It's a very hard thing to turn around. Whereas with 45 minutes to an hour, you can say something out of order, and when you remember, hey, I've said that out of order, which could be 10 minutes down the track, you can just inject it as you've gone along, and it doesn't seem as seamless. I actually feel the longer the presentation, the easier to find the flow, the easier to get the right information out, and the easier to keep catching yourself in those right or wrong moments. So there are many different techniques that I've used over the years and developed to bring excitable energy, to bring confidence out of myself while I'm on stage. And there's so many different reasons as to why you get scared talking in public. Number one is you just feel incredibly vulnerable. You're being stared at, who you are. You feel so exposed, what you're wearing. Maybe you haven't been going to the gym recently and you feel a little bit out of shape. Whatever it might be, your brain is just constantly going, they're going to judge you. You're exposed. There's actually, now this is above my pay grade, there is actually a quantum physics explanation for it. There is a theory. Quantum physics is so far above my brain capacity, but I have looked into this and I have read this theory. Whether it is actually a fact or a law, I don't know, but it makes sense. The quantum physics theory of why you're scared of public speaking is there are energy particles in your eyesight. So if you're staring at someone, the energy in the direction of the eyesight, the particles change and form and get more whatever, okay? And that's why you can stand in public and go, I feel like someone's looking at me, and you turn around and you meet eyes with someone. It's the same feeling of that. It's actually changing the energy particles that are directing towards you. That sounds like mumbo jumbo, but the quantum physics people, they say that's one of the reasons why you get scared speaking in public, because you're standing in front of 2,000 people. So if you can feel that on the back of your neck with one set of eyeballs, imagine 2,000 sets of eyeballs. It's like, when you watch nature documentaries and you see a lion hunting in the Serengeti and it's hiding behind leaves or grass, and the antelope are eating and they can just sense it. Hang on a second, something's off. We're being watched. And they look around. It's a survival mechanism ingrained in us. Even though we are at the top of the food chain, we still have a defense mechanism towards predators. So if someone is staring at us, we can feel it. That's mental. So imagine standing up in front of 2,000 people. You're going to have a physical reaction. I like to play mental games. I like to play mind games with myself to get into the right mood, to get into the right mode, the energy. It's actually called NLP, right? Where it's called neuro-linguistic programming. I don't know if I definitely use parts of it, but I've been doing this long enough where I can click my fingers or flick a switch and I go into performance mode. I go into my on-stage mode. Like, I've been really sick off stage. I've been hungover off stage. I've been, just coming out of a breakup off stage. I've been highly stressed, depressed, you name it. But the moment I have to shine, everything disappears and I'm present on stage, focusing on the performance. And that in itself, that's another art form. The ability to do that is a skill set that you need to develop over the years. For me, it's autopilot. It just happens. Like, the amount of times I have been exhausted, you name it, off stage, really not wanting to do it. Stomach cramps, headaches, depression, everything. But the moment you're on stage, you don't feel a thing and you just deliver. Sometimes it's your best performance. In fact, I have noticed that if I am not feeling excited, if I'm not nervous to a degree, if I'm not full of energy beforehand, feeling a little bit like, oh, is this going to go well? How's this going to go? You start analyzing the crowd and I'm too confident, I actually don't go very well on stage. You need that fear. You need that risk element. You need that maybe hanging over your head. I don't know how this is going to go. And I have found whenever I have that, I perform better on stage. Now, I never get nervous, so to speak. I've been doing this for too long. I never get nervous, but I do get excited. And I think in that language that I've just used is very important, because they're probably the same feelings physically and emotionally, nervous and excited. But I have developed a way to program my brain with words how to feel specifically when it comes to performing, specifically when it comes to getting on stage. I take a very psychological approach with words, an NLP approach, neuro linguistic programming. I believe there's such power behind the words that we use about ourselves and other people, and even in our day to day language. So I've done a lot of work with the right words to program me to be able to perform at my elite peak level every single time. There are other techniques that I've used over the years. For example, there's a saying in far north Queensland where the indigenous population swim in the ocean. Now, it is crocodile infested waters in far north Queensland. These are monster dinosaurs that eat people. Giant signs, do not swim. Achtung, Achtung, it says in German. Warning in German. I don't know why German, but do not swim in far north Queensland. And very often in croc infested waters, I will see indigenous mobs swimming. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? You're going to die. They have a saying, if you think about the crocodile thinks about you. So they're not playing in the water, they're hunting. They're doing a job. They're going in there to do a task and they get out. And their mentality is, if you think about the crocodile will be attracted to you. Now, I'm not going to apply that to hunting in waters with crocodiles. But the theory is very powerful. When you naturally and psychologically gravitate towards something and imagine it and picture it, you naturally grow and go towards it. I've been doing a lot of work on manifesting, a lot of experimenting on manifesting. Now, you can't just sit in your room and hope for a new Ferrari. You've got to actually put the work into it, but you've got to know your goals and you've got to work towards your goals. Now, every day, if you manifest your goals, what you want out of this life and what you want to achieve, right? The power of manifesting is saying it over and over and over and really believing that you deserve it. Then throughout the day, unconsciously, your brain will spot opportunities that align towards that goal. And you kind of have a decision-making filter. Is what I'm about to do now, does that work towards my goal that I'm manifesting? And when you do this a million times over 5 years, you get to your goal, because it's achieving something is a mathematical formula. 1 + 1 = 2. Hard work, direction, you're going to get there. Obviously, a lot of luck can be involved sometimes. It might shorten that time frame. But so the idea of imagining a situation, you naturally gravitate towards it. There's a saying that I like, which goes, where the mind goes, the body follows, and where the body goes, the mind follows. I always imagine a 10 out of 10 performance. Before I'm getting up on stage, I will pace somewhere on my own and I will say out loud, yes, this is going to be amazing. They're going to love this. I'm going to impact them. This is going to be one of the best performances I ever deliver. This keynote is going to absolutely impact the lives of my audience. I'm going to make such a difference. I'm going to do so well on stage. I know my script. I know what I'm saying. I'm ready. I'm capable of it. Like, I just give myself the ultimate pep talk and imagine, and I visualize them crying, laughing, standing ovation. I delete any doubt. I delete any second guessing. I delete from my brain. I completely remove and eradicate any self-doubt, because when I'm in those moments, I need to feel like someone is championing me, not holding me back. The amount of times on stages over the years I've second guessed myself on something, then you half-ass the delivery. No one likes a lukewarm attempt. No one likes half running into something. It's full delivery or don't do it. So I've had to make decisions where I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I need to do it at 100% or not do it at all. And there are some elements of my jokes or some stories that I read the crowd and go, you're not receptive to this next part. And I just cut it out. I won't do it. Or I go, you know what? I reckon they can handle this, and I will inject it. 9 times out of 10, it's worked. There has been an occasion I remember where I said a joke. It didn't go down well at all. But Who cares? You just got to roll with the punches. It was funny to me, and it's funny that they didn't laugh at it. I'll share the joke with you now. It's not a joke, it's a story. Being an ambassador for Tourette Syndrome Association Australia, I used to go to their camps and deliver my presentation to a room full of 100 kids with full-blown Tourette syndrome. And this is the extreme cases. These are the one-off, one in a million cases where it's like coprolalia, which is the swearing, copropraxia, which is rude gestures, and impulsions, which is just shouting things out, which aren't offensive, or just banging a table, slapping something out of someone's hands. These are impulsions. And these are the really extreme, rare cases. In fact, it's only 10% of the population who have Tourette's have coprolalia. So in my presentation, right at the beginning, I set up a delivery for something. I set up a joke for later, or I set up a callback for later on in 45 minutes time. And I ask, whose birthday's coming up? And they put up their hand. I say, what do you want for your birthday? And they say a PlayStation. And I say, fantastic. Then I relate in my story about 20 minutes in, when I got my first job on television, when they offered me the role on a kids' TV show as the host. It was that same feeling you get when you wake up to your birthday and you've got a brand new PlayStation, just like that kid mentioned about 20 minutes ago. And then when I got offered a job on Totally Wild, it was like waking up to a PlayStation and an Xbox, and the feeling has improved and it's better. And I used that the whole time. Every job opportunity I got, Totally Wild, Toasted TV, radio, every opportunity I've had in my life, I improve the present and make it bigger. So I bring all of the crowd in, and they're in on the in-joke. And every time I mention it, they understand it started as a PlayStation and it finished as a Ferrari. So I asked this kid. Now, Tourette's camp is fantastic because it's the one place these kids can go to and they're not ostracized for their coprolalia, where they shout out offensive and curse words. They shout out sentences that are highly offensive in society. And there's no stigma around it because they've all got it. And so the amount of things that come out of 6-year-old kids' mouths that would be offensive in any normal social situation aren't offensive there. It's very accepted, very welcomed, and everyone laughs because they all have it. So I asked right at the beginning of my keynote, I said, whose birthday's coming up? And this kid put up his hand. He was 17. And I said, what do you want for your birthday? And he goes, your mother's... Everybody laughed. Everyone in the room howling laughing because it was totally acceptable. It was totally okay. And everybody there understood Tourette's. So it was the only place that I've ever heard that response. And so to continue the theme, I would use his example. You know the feeling when you wake up on your birthday and there's your mother's, and it was a callback to what was hilarious earlier on. And then when I got the job on Totally Wild, it was like waking up and it was my grandmother's, and it would improve every time. Hilarious. But I shared that at a school to the teachers and parents, and they did not like it. What are you going to do? It's a funny story, but they didn't find it funny. And I'll probably never speak at that school again. No students are in the room. It was one of those things where only probably 25% of the audience laughed and then stopped themselves from laughing because no one else was laughing. It was a pretty uptight school, though, I will say. But every other time that I've told that story, they laugh and they love it. They think it's a hilarious story. My suggestion to you, if you are scared of public speaking, if you are scared of delivering a presentation in front of groups, I would say don't start off with a small group. Small groups are actually more nerve-wracking than larger groups, because when you're in front of more people, there seems to be a disconnect. And to be able to make it an intimate performance to a large group is a really complex, advanced skill set that you need to learn over many years of doing it. But when you're first starting out, or you need to deliver something, you need to push yourself. You need to push your own boundaries, what you're comfortable with, and expand your comfort zone. So it takes a lot of courage, but you need to put your hand up and put yourself on stages. And again, I would recommend starting out with larger audiences. So if you have a conference coming up, asking your boss, can I read out a blurb to the next speaker? Can I MC the Christmas party? Whatever it is, put yourself in situations where you are nervous, and don't overdo the performance. Just do a box ticking delivery. Do not overthink. Do not overdo. Just go through the paces. Just as long as you pop the cherry, so to speak, get up in front of a group of people, the more the merrier, and do a non-memorable experience. Read off a piece of paper if you have to. The goal is to put yourself in front of an audience, to put yourself in front of a crowd, and deliver the shortest delivery possible. But break down that barrier in order to build up your confidence skills in doing it. It's weird, but it works. About 5 minutes before you need to be there, go somewhere where you're on your own. Stand in a power stance with your hands up, with your chest out, with your legs firmly planted. Force a smile and say to yourself, yes, yes, I've got this. I'm going to dominate. I'm the best. I can do this. I am capable. I'm amazing. That sounds crazy. But when you do that for 2 minutes, okay, 2 minutes, it actually releases dopamine into your brain, and it tells yourself that you are. So it's like that saying, fake it until you make it. It's like fake it until you become it. And there was a study done with 2 groups of people going for a job interview. One group, there were 2 groups, and one group didn't do anything. They just sat in a room. The other group did the exercises, the power stance, the power language, forcing a smile. And the group that did it far outperformed on the job interview than the people who didn't. There is actually a physiological effect that when you tell yourself that you are good, and you stand in a power stance and you force a smile, it actually works. Where the mind goes, the body follows. And where the body goes, the mind follows. You can trick yourself to believing you are something. So if you go into it saying, I'm not good, oh, I'm going to buckle under pressure, I'm too nervous, I could never do it, then yeah, you're never going to. You have to take the steps to change that way of thinking. The other thing I would suggest is don't actually write a word-for-word script. If you are able to just do a dot point, this is how I work. It might not work for you, but I have found when you try and, unless you're a professionally trained actor and you know how to memorize script word for word, if you mess up the wording order or formation, it can throw everything off. If just because you missed one word. I try and memorize as little as possible, but I memorize the flow and I memorize the order. I think they're the most important, because just say there's a word or a sentence or a story that needs to be in order of a delivery. I just make sure I've got the order right so the flow is correct. And if you're telling your own story, if you're telling your own personal story or a life journey, you know it anyway. It's all up here. You need to give yourself more credit. You need to rely on your own brain to work. It's already there. When I was on Totally Wild and I would interview guests, whether they were zookeepers or diving instructors, whatever it was, they would get nervous. And they're like, what are you going to ask me? Can you send me a script beforehand? I just need to know what I'm going to say. And I would use NLP. I guess that's what you can call it, neuro-linguistic programming. And I would touch them on the elbow and I would look them in the face and I would smile and I'd say, hey, everything I ask you, you already know the answer to. You're actually, I can tell, you're incredible. You are a fantastic talent and you're going to do so well at this. And trust me, look, it's not live. We can just cut and do it again. But I believe truly, just by knowing you from this little bit, that you are going to nail this. And there's nothing you won't be able to answer. And even if you don't, that's why I'm here. I'll jump in and I'll make sure everything's smooth. The reason why I did that is supposedly touching the elbow is like the least invasive place on a human being, but it creates connection and it creates a bond. Plus, I'd stare them in the eyes and I'd just champion them, like just love bomb them and make them feel awesome about themselves. And I found it really worked. It really did. So find a way to do that to yourself. Be your own champion. Be your own cheerleader. Really get behind yourself and believe it with everything you've got. And get out there and just do it. One of the best things I learned, best lessons, best test that I put myself through was when I was doing stand-up comedy. I was so scared of people not laughing at my jokes that I didn't have my pausing and pacing right because I didn't want to stop talking. I didn't want silence. I was scared that the silence meant not funny. Silence doesn't mean not funny. Silence means listening. Silence is a brilliant thing. You need to harness silence. If you can get silence in a delivery, people lean in. You can't be scared of silence. And I was. And I was only doing 5-minute sets. And I was doing it okay. But my pacing was off. So I decided one week, I'm going to bomb on purpose. I'm going to get up and I don't want anyone to laugh for 5 minutes. And it's going to be the worst set of my life. And I did it. It was a horrible set and no one laughed. I purposely bombed. I purposely told jokes that didn't work. I purposely messed up the delivery. I sat in silence for a really long time staring at the crowd. It was awkward. It was horrible. And I sabotaged that set on purpose because afterwards I realized it wasn't that bad. Nothing happened. I didn't die. I wasn't physically hurt. I'm never going to see those people again. And that was it. There was no result. And so from then on, I wasn't scared of silence. So I was able to get in control of my pacing and my timing and my pauses and inject silence into my delivery because silence is a very powerful weapon if you know how to use it. And I wasn't able to use it then until I did that set. If you are on stage and you lose your spot, don't be scared of silence. You can actually use it. Yeah, it can get awkward if you don't recover quick or if you don't recover correctly, rather, not quick, but correctly. Like sometimes I've been in situations where if I don't know what I'm saying and I've lost my spot, I will walk to the other end of the stage and take a drink of water. No one second guesses that because he's thirsty. No one second, and then you go right back to it and ignore it and pretend it never happened. No one thinks about it. But if I stand there in silence, shaking, going, uh-oh, 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 that's worse. So that's why if you ever forget your spot, just keep walking. I hope if you've listened to this and you have an upcoming presentation or oral at school, or you've got a keynote delivery at a conference, whatever it is, I hope this has given you some insight into how to put yourself in the right mind frame and how to get up on stage, how to actually put yourself in those nerve-wracking moments and be able to live to tell the tale and not be affected by it. Thank you so much for listening.